Welcome back to another episode of the Weber Warriors Pulse podcast. You're back with Ray. Abigail's on break this week. It's my turn, and I'm super excited to keep up with our theme of new beginnings, new coaches. It's a new year. So for today's interview, we are interviewing head women's volleyball coach Matthew Geer. Thanks for being with us today.
Of course, thanks for having me.
So to start off, I just want to get a little bit of background, so our audience can get to know you a little bit. So if you don't mind talking a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. So I originally moved from Tennessee just over 3 years ago to Miami. I grew up playing soccer my entire life, and I didn't really develop a love for volleyball until I was in high school. I was always around it because my dad would travel the country and play. My aunts and uncles, all of my cousins, everyone played, so I was always around it. But small town in Tennessee, you don't really have a lot of boys volleyball anywhere, so soccer most of my life, and then I was lucky that I decided to not play soccer in college, and then I made the transition to volleyball, and it's kind of where I'm at now. Yeah, so I'm very happy. But yeah, growing up as a kid, no boys volleyball around, and so it was always soccer. See,
that's funny, because growing up in Orlando, it was funny because our high school team, one of our best sports, our boys volleyball team, they're like 2-time state champs, and it's funny because people I would ask, "Oh, what are you guys good at?" And I'd be like, "Boys volleyball," and it's like, "What's that?"
Yeah,
yeah. And some of our best players, they would even do super good. They play club and travel volleyball, and they're like, it's hard to find D1 teams. Like they're just like not, they're far and few in between.
They don't. I mean, it doesn't even compare. We're lucky because even just men's volleyball in college, there have been so many programs. I mean, just in Florida, Edward Waters is starting their men's volleyball program this year. So. Luckily, it's popping up a lot more, and which is again surprising because with COVID, there were a lot of women's programs that ended up shutting down because of financial. So yeah, I definitely understand the lack of boys volleyball just everywhere.
Yeah. So I was looking in your bio, and you played at Tennessee Tech. So if you don't mind, giving a little bit of insight in your playing days back in college.
Yeah. So it's actually really funny. So I didn't go into Tech with the intention of playing volleyball. Ended up being joining the program because the head women's volleyball coach, she actually taught a class. She taught volleyball class, and so at the school they offered tennis class you could take as an elective, and it was a 1 hour credit, and volleyball was one of them. I was like, well, I grew up around volleyball. I used to play all the time. Like, why not? It's an easy elective. And so the head coach was the professor for that class, and so I was passing one day, and she comes up to me and she goes, "You've played volleyball before, haven't you?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Okay, you need to come to one of our practices." So I came to an open practice during preseason. Of course, I loved it, and I just went wild because I missed playing sports. I mean, when you grow up around sports your whole life, it's tough to leave it, whether you're playing or coaching. And from that point on, it was over. I ended up joining the team late in preseason. I was a setter. I mean, I'm only 5'10", and in men's volleyball, that is tiny. So I was a setter my career. It was funny. At first, they weren't exactly sure where to put me because I was okay at everything, and it took me a while to kind of develop the skills to get where I'm at. But I was very lucky to join and kind of find that my freshman year early on. That's
awesome. And I know you said you just moved to Florida, specifically Miami, just a couple of years ago. So I know that you helped out. You coached at Barry University, which is a D2 in Miami. So. Did you come to Florida for that job, or it kind of just worked out?
Yeah, so it's funny. I always said I never wanted to end up in Florida. Yeah. Just because, especially in Tennessee, which again is ironic. Florida is kind of like the butt of a joke. Because Florida man, and but of course I ended up moving to South Florida. I love it, the location. And joining with Barry, I was very, very lucky to join that program. I worked with a lot of talented coaching staff that have really influenced where I'm at today. We are very lucky with all the amenities that we had within that program too, and the support. The school's very supportive of that. I love my time at Barry, and they luckily were very successful, and so that was great for a first-year coach getting into college.
For sure. Yeah, well, when I was looking at it, the fact that you guys made the NCAA tournament twice, 2 years you were there, and I think even the first year you guys finished top 25 in the country.
Yeah, so the very first year, we ended up finishing the season out ranked. It was the best record that they had since the early 2000s, and so we made it to top 32. We ended up losing to who went on to become the national champions, Tampa. And then the following year, we ended up top 16 and just lost at regionals before it was top 8.
Okay. Yeah. See, that I think that's awesome. And, just bringing that's experience you get to bring to to Weber. And,
Absolutely.
We're gonna get into that more later.
Yeah.
So after Barry, I saw you were offered the job at Johnson and Wales,
Yep.
but that didn't end up happening.
No, that was fun. Yeah. So I made that transition. I remember going in for an interview and just thinking, oh, there's no chance. Like I love the sport. I'm so passionate about it, but there's just no chance that I'm gonna get lucky enough to have that head coaching opportunity right away. And so I go interview, and it's funny whenever you don't expect things that happen. You go into it, and I'm just thinking, okay, I'm just gonna go for the interview experience and just to kind of feel what it's like to what that interview process looks like for a head coach. And turned out really well, and I was offered the position as the head coach in January of last year. Obviously, COVID happened, and so in March we ended up completely stopping practices and then making that transition to moving practice at home and getting creative with, do you have a volleyball at home? Okay, let's find one, and what can you do at home? And after 6 months of being there, there's 4 Johnson and Wales across the country, and they ended up shutting down 2 of them in July. It was mostly because of COVID and financial that they shut down. The Miami campus was one of them. So that was very unfortunate, that was taken away. But I was very grateful for my time there, and they were really supportive too. And luckily, 2 of the athletes that were there I brought over here.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, so one that I had recruited and then one that was already there. I was lucky enough for them to come over and trust us here at Weber.
So how when you, like you said, the school shuts down at Johnson and Wales.
Right.
So you have the head coaching job. You always wanted, and then out of nowhere it's gone.
Oh yeah.
How did you go from being at Johnson and Wales? How did you end up here at Weber? Like how did you end up here?
Yeah, it's funny because that was definitely one of the toughest days. I mean, like you have that right in front of you, and I think it was, if anything, such a great lesson on life that anything can happen at any time.
Yeah.
And that things always happen for a reason. Always, 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 no matter how tough it is, whether it's to make you a stronger person or whether maybe that wasn't the right path at the right time. And so I remember whenever I got the call that Johnson & Wales was shutting down, that the previous head coach had reached out to me. I actually think it was the day of finding that out. It was later that evening, and had reached out to me and was like, well, actually, we are looking for an assistant. And it's funny, I told her no about 5 times. That was always the joke whenever we were here out. I said no 5 times, that I just moved to this area, I'm just getting accustomed to it, and it's such a long distance, and no. And that was for probably a week and a half, and then finally I just thought about it, and I was like, I don't think I can go a season without being in a program.
Yeah.
And so I came to campus. I really like campus. I mean, it's beautiful here at Weber.
Yeah,
the
for sure.
lake, and everyone knows everybody. I know you, especially walking around here, you're around everyone, and you see a face, so I can know that face.
Yeah,
At the very least, I know that
yeah.
face, if not the name, which I really, really liked, and that was something that I liked at Johnson & Wales too,
Yeah.
obviously, because they were in our conference. But yeah, that the head coach reached out to me, and eventually I caved and said yes to be the assistant. Yeah.
So so like you said, you're an assistant last year.
Mm-hmm.
The head coach last year moved on. She had a different job, and they decided to bump you up to head coach.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, what are some of the biggest differences, you've seen? You're an assistant at Barry, you're an assistant last year. You got the head coaching job at Johnson & Wales, but like you said, because of COVID, you never really
Didn't
were
have a
able.
full season,
yeah, you didn't have
right.
a full season.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the biggest differences, you've seen from being an assistant to being a head coach now?
Yeah, it's so funny because I am the type of person that no matter what job I'm in, I put a lot of pressure on myself at all times. So whether I'm an assistant, whether I was a graduate assistant or whatever it is, I will always be like, I'm the head. Like I have to represent at all times. And so honestly, for me, it was a very smooth transition. It's, of course, a lot of work to take on whenever you go from a full coaching staff to now you're jumping in that head position. But for me, it was really smooth because the previous coach had trusted me with a lot of responsibilities. So I was very familiar with like the day-to-day paperwork and the recruiting side I'd done before for years. And so it was a pretty smooth transition for me. I was very lucky and very happy with it. Yeah.
For sure. So, I'm an RA on campus. I was here early on in the semester before everybody started moving in. So I was here for all the early move-in days. And one thing I noticed when women's volleyball moved in, A lot of new faces.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things I had to ask, how did you go about recruiting this offseason? There's a huge overhaul of new faces, a lot of transfers, a lot of just new freshmen. So what was the mindset in terms of recruiting and your idea of what it was that you wanted to bring in?
Yeah, it's so important with recruiting, and with athletics, it's everyone always, wow, she's amazing, wow, the skill. But the most important thing is bringing in good people, just good people. And that's something that it takes time to get to know somebody. And so we really focus on that recruiting process of getting to know the people, because we have athletes that'll come and go, and that's any program that may be here for 1 year, they may be here for 4 years. And you really want to try to find people that are the perfect fit for the program and the school. And so with the recruiting process, of course, the talent is always important. That's what catches your eye. But talent means nothing if you aren't a great teammate and aren't just a good person. And I think this year we have a lot of good people. I think that you kind of see that on the court now, especially when we're playing, that the chemistry is really there. The bonding has happened so quickly. For us, it's really just about how great of a teammate are you? What will your club coach and high school coach say about you as far as you being a good teammate? Are you just a great player, or a great player and a great teammate?
Yeah, for sure. And like you were talking about how you got already seen the bonding and the chemistry on the court. That's the next thing I want to talk about. Is you guys are having a pretty good start to the season. A strong start. You guys started off with a couple wins versus Florida National. You guys played the number 13 team in the country and played them strong. I mean, you guys got a set. It was pretty. In my opinion, all the sets were really close. Right. And then last week the Kaiser Invitational, you split 2 games. So you're having a pretty good start to the season right now. You guys are above 500. So what are some things that you like seeing, and how this team has started the season, where they're going so far?
Yeah, so we took a lot of time to talk about preseason goals, and it's really important that they're the ones setting them. I'm kind of steering them in the direction of where we would like them to be, but they're truly the ones setting it, because they have to be accountable. They have to hold themselves accountable for those goals. And so we kind of review where the goals are at, and it was a lot of not just percentage-wise where we want to be, but a lot of court presence. What does that look like? And so understanding that, how do we respond after we roof somebody on the court, or how do we respond after we kill? Okay, well, what does that look like if we get blocked? It should look the same. It should look relaxed. It should look confident. We're still playing our game. And so I think the biggest difference going into this season of establishing is them understanding what they should look like on the court at all times, that they should look relaxed, they should look confident, they should look light. And for them, they always say play light, play light. And you see the big difference when a team is playing light and when they're playing heavy. And I think that so far they've done a really good job making that difference, because it's tough to go from maybe putting a lot of pressure on yourself and kind of getting in your head to going into, I can play light. I know how I'm supposed to be on the court, and I think they've done a really good job.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. As a college athlete myself, I know we get into our heads a lot, especially thinking of we have to make sure that we're doing everything. I think sometimes I'm guilty of it. We forget to just enjoy playing. At the end of the day, we got here because we love playing the sport, whatever sport it is. Yeah. So I think it's awesome that you're kind of just reminding them just play, at the end of the day. And like I said, it's showing off. You guys are off to a great season. Now that you guys are getting to the halfway point of the season, what are some of the goals as you guys go into that last stretch, hopefully making playoff appearances this year? Yeah,
so they really talked about in preseason and going into conference too. I mean, we set practice goals, we set preseason goals, we set conference goals, and then we set postseason goals. Yeah. And so right now they're on track with their preseason. They're talking about very specific numbers that I won't bore you with, but very specific numbers that they're hitting marker-wise. And then obviously being above that 500, they're doing a great job. And then, of course, the off-court stuff. Are they doing team bonding on their own? And are they doing all of these other things and being supportive? Are they being good classmates? And since we just started school, are you on top of everything? Do we have missed absences too? And it's just really important that they do what they love and they're hitting their markers, and it's all about not the big picture, it's about all the small pictures. And so their big dream, and I told them dream big. Yeah. I told them to dream big, and their big dream was win nationals. Okay, how do you get to nationals? Well, you win conference. How do you get to win in conference? Well, you top 4, and so we kind of backtrack so they understand how to set smart goals.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I just want to thank you again for joining us today. It's amazing. You guys out there, they have a doubleheader this weekend coming up at St. Andrews. It is away, so if you guys want to catch it, just go on the Weber Athletics page. We'll have the link up for you guys. Support them. They're about to hit that halfway point, so Final stretch coming up. Next week, we're going to have another episode on Monday with Abigail. So we hope you guys have a good rest of your week and go Warriors.
Go Warriors.